Welcome to the Book Nook. We are so glad you are here with us. You know, usually when we talk about achieving success in our culture, there is this underlying, almost completely unquestioned assumption that it has to look like a massive, chaotic construction site.
Right. Yeah.
Like, think about it. If you are building a skyscraper, you need these rigorous blueprints. You need heavy machinery. You have to pour concrete, sweat through sleepless nights. You're essentially forcing this colossal structure of steel and glass up into the sky through sheer, unrelenting willpower.
It's a very industrial view of human potential. It's almost combative, like you're fighting the elements, you're fighting gravity, you're fighting your competitors to get the best plot of land.
Yes, exactly. And it's loud. It is just exhausting. I mean, we've built this entire culture around imposing our will on the world. We literally treat the dark circles under our eyes as, receipts that we paid the price for our ambition.
We wear burnout like a badge of honor.
We really do. But then you step into the world of ancient spiritual philosophy, and suddenly that whole construction site metaphor is just tossed right out the window. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a paradigm of success that is less like building a skyscraper and much more like, say, growing a massive oak tree.
Right, because you don't stand over an acorn and pull on the sprout to force it upward.
Right.
You don't yell at it to grow faster. You place it in fertile soil, you ensure it has light and water, and then you just get out of its way. The growth is inherent. It's effortless. And that is it's a massive fundamental paradigm shift for a modern mind to actually accept.
And that shift is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Today on the Book Nook, we are exploring a text that fundamentally challenges everything modern hustle culture has taught us. We are looking closely at the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra.
It's a classic for a reason.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the core premise here is incredibly radical. Like we said, society defines success through this very specific lens, right? Relentless hard work, exacting plans, crushing the competition. It's often the zero-sum game where someone else literally has to lose for us to win.
But Chopra completely redefines the term. He defines success not as a final destination, where you finally have enough money or the right status or that corner office, but as the constant progressive expansion of happiness.
The expansion of happiness.
Yeah, and it's the realization of useful goals, certainly, but most profoundly, he argues that true success is the unfolding of the divinity that is already deep within us.
I'm going to ground that word divinity right away, actually, because I know for a lot of people you hear that and it triggers this religious reflex. But reading through the source material, it feels much closer to psychological self-actualization.
Yes, exactly.
It's about tapping into the absolute core of your human potential. The part of you that isn't burdened by trauma or societal expectations or your ego.
That is a highly accurate translation for a modern analytical audience, because to understand how Chopra frames this, we really have to look at the philosophical groundwork he lays right at the beginning of the text. He introduces this concept that the physical universe, so everything we can touch, see, measure, is just the unmanifest turning into the manifest.
Okay, so the unmanifest is like the invisible, the potential, the raw data, and the manifest is the physical reality we actually interact with.
Precisely. Think of the unmanifest as this unknown realm of pure spirit or pure potential. When it becomes physical matter, it has manifested. So the laws of success aren't some, artificial rules invented by Wall Street or Silicon Valley.
Right.
They are the exact same mechanical laws that nature uses to create a forest or to form a galaxy or build a human body. Nature doesn't struggle to create a star. It just follows these fundamental laws. And Chopra's argument is that if we align our lives with these 7 laws, we can manifest our deepest desires with that exact same effortless precision.
Which is a beautiful promise, but man, it requires us to completely rewire how we view our own identity.
Oh, completely.
And that brings us to the absolute bedrock of this whole philosophy, which is law number 1, the law of pure potentiality. The core concept here posits that our true spiritual essence is pure consciousness. It is this field of all possibilities and infinite creativity. Like, before you're your job title, before your bank account, before even your physical body, you are pure, unshaped potential.
And the text makes an incredibly sharp distinction here between 2 ways we experience our lives and our identities. He calls them object referral versus self-referral.
This part blew my mind.
It's so good. Object referral is the state most of us live in, frankly, 99% of the time. It's when our internal reference point, like our sense of who we are and our actual worth, is driven entirely by external objects.
And objects doesn't just mean physical things like cars or houses, right? It means situations, people, titles, and heavily the opinions of others. It is living your life constantly asking, well, what do they think of me? Or how does this make me look?
Yeah, and the vulnerability there is just massive.
Yeah.
Because object referral is fundamentally rooted in fear. It is an exhausting cycle. You are constantly seeking approval and trying to control external circumstances just to feel safe. Your power is entirely dependent on things completely outside of your control.
I was trying to map this onto something we see in the business world every day, and I thought of this analogy. Think of a company whose entire valuation is based on hype.
Oh, sure.
Let's say it's a tech startup, and their stock price is artificially inflated because of a few viral tweets and a charismatic CEO. That is object referral. The value is entirely dependent on public perception and external sentiment.
Right, it's totally hollow.
Exactly. The moment the public gets bored or a scandal hits, the stock price craters to zero because there was nothing underneath it. The power vanishes instantly.
That is a brilliant modern equivalent. The illusion of value just shatters. But then you have a company operating from what Chopra calls self-referral. This is the company that has unshakable intrinsic value. They have rock-solid infrastructure, thousands of utility patents, a deeply skilled workforce, and a product that fundamentally changes lives.
Yeah, so even if the broader stock market crashes or public sentiment temporarily dips, their intrinsic value remains totally untouched. Their power isn't derived from the external gaze. It is derived from their internal reality.
Exactly. And when we apply that to the individual, self-referral means your reference point is your own spirit, your true self. If you lose the prestigious job, your magnetic presence remains. You don't suddenly feel worthless because your worth was never tied to the title in the first place.
It's bulletproof.
It really is. The book describes self-referral as an internal state that is completely immune to criticism. It is fearless in the face of challenges. But, and this is a really crucial nuance here, it is also incredibly humble.
That humility piece is interesting to me. Because usually when we think of someone who is immune to criticism, we picture an arrogant narcissist.
Right, but arrogance is just another mask of the ego, which means it's object referral. Arrogance requires comparing yourself to others to feel superior. Operating from your true self means you do not feel superior to anyone else because you recognize that everyone else comes from that exact same field of pure potentiality. You are all just wearing different disguises, basically. You see the shared intrinsic value in every single human being.
Okay, so the listener's probably nodding along right now thinking, great. I would love to have a fearless, humble, magnetic beacon of pure consciousness with intrinsic value. How on earth do I actually do that when my Slack notifications are going off and my kids are screaming in the other room?
It's the million-dollar question.
It is. But Chopra doesn't just leave us with the philosophy. He gives us very specific tools to access this field of pure potentiality. And the first one is deceptively simple, yet arguably the hardest to execute for a modern human. And that is silence.
He suggests making a commitment to take time periodically to just be, escaping the activity of speech, escaping watching television, listening to podcasts, doom scrolling on your phone, or even reading a book. It is about reducing the turbulence of your internal dialogue.
But the friction there is intense. I mean, if I sit in silence for even 5 minutes, my brain doesn't just quietly settle down. It starts screaming at me.
Oh, absolutely.
I suddenly remember an email I forgot to send 3 days ago. I start worrying about my electric bill. I start replaying an awkward conversation I had at the grocery store. It feels like the total opposite of peace.
And Chopra actually warns about this exact phenomenon. He notes that if you haven't done this before, your inner dialogue is going to go absolutely crazy at first. You sit in silence, and suddenly you feel this overwhelming urgency, a deep anxiety. Your brain is shouting, I have to do something. I am wasting productive time.
It's essentially dopamine withdrawal, isn't it? Our brains are so overstimulated by constant inputs that the absolute absence of input feels like a biological threat.
From a neurological standpoint, yes, that's exactly what it is. You are forcing your brain's default mode network to confront itself without external distraction. But Chopra says if you stay with it, eventually the inner turmoil calms down. The mind surrenders because it realizes there is no point in just spinning its wheels. You have to endure that initial discomfort to break through to the stillness.
I used to hear the metaphor of letting muddy water sit still until the dirt settles and the water becomes clear. But honestly, in the digital age, a better metaphor is having a computer with 100 memory-heavy applications running simultaneously. Your fan is whirring, the battery is draining, the whole system is lagging. Silence is the process of slowly force-quitting those applications one by one until the CPU can actually rest.
That's a great way to look at it. And alongside silence, the second tool he prescribes is meditation. He recommends 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening.
Which is a big commitment. But he says that is the ideal practice to consistently dip into that field of pure silence and pure awareness. Meditation is the formal, structured practice of what silence does informally.
Exactly.
Now, the third tool really caught me off guard. It is non-judgment. I don't think I fully realized the massive cognitive load, like the sheer energy drain of constantly labeling everything around me.
Oh, it's wild when you notice it. How much of our mental bandwidth is consumed by just evaluating things. This is good, that is bad. I like her outfit. I hate his tone of voice. This traffic is unacceptable. That cloud looks nice. Judgment creates massive turbulence in our inner dialogue. It is like throwing rocks into that still pond we just talked about. It completely blocks your connection to pure potentiality because you're constantly fragmenting your reality into tiny labeled boxes.
Right. So the actionable practice he suggests is to start your day by declaring, "Today I will judge nothing that occurs." And then you just have to catch yourself throughout the day.
Which is really hard.
It is. When someone cuts you off in traffic, your instinct is to label them an idiot. Instead, you just observe. A car moved in front of me. When a meeting goes long, instead of labeling it a disaster, you observe. We are still in the conference room. It sounds almost robotic, but I imagine the freedom from that emotional roller coaster must be incredible.
You are stepping out of the role of the judge and into the role of the witness. And the final tool to anchor this first law is communion with nature. Simply spending time observing a sunset, sitting by the ocean, or even just really looking at a tree in your local park.
Which again has a profound physiological effect.
Mm.
There's so much modern research on how looking at the fractal geometry of nature, like the branching of trees, the shapes of leaves, actually calms the human nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
We are physically wired to find peace in nature's intelligence.
Because nature effortlessly resides in that field of pure potentiality. A tree isn't judging itself. It isn't operating from object referral. It simply is. By observing it, we sync our own internal rhythm back to that baseline.
Okay, so we've established the foundation. We are practicing silence. We are meditating. We're dropping the exhausting habit of judging everything. And we are reconnecting with nature. We are resting in the field of pure potentiality. But obviously, you can't just sit on a mountain in silence forever.
Right. You have to actually live your life.
You have to participate. You have to interact with the physical world, which means moving from the internal to the external. And this naturally flows into this second major concept, the law of giving and receiving.
The narrative link here is vital. The first law found the quiet field within yourself. The second law is about how you take that internal state and interact with the dynamic mechanics of the universe. The core concept is that the universe operates through dynamic exchange. Nothing is static.
Everything is in motion, always.
Always. Your body is in a constant dynamic exchange with the cosmos. A simple breath is giving carbon dioxide and receiving oxygen. If you stop the exchange, you die. The same principle applies to everything, including wealth and success.
I was absolutely fascinated by how the text looks at the actual language we use around wealth. Chopra points out the etymology of the word affluence. It comes from the Latin root affluere, which literally means to flow towards. Affluence isn't about having a static, giant pile of gold locked in a vault. It is about being part of a flow of abundance.
He also highlights the word currency. It shares its root with current, like the current of a river. It intrinsically implies a flowing nature. Money is quite literally a symbol of the life energy we exchange as a result of the service we provide to the universe.
So if money and energy are meant to flow like a river, it totally reframes what happens when we panic and try to hoard it.
He uses a visceral biological metaphor to illustrate this, and it's so good. If we hoard money, if our only intention is to hold on to it out of a deep-seated fear of losing it, we stop its circulation. In the human body, if you block the flow of blood, it begins to stagnate, it coagulates, and eventually it suffocates and kills the tissue. If we stop the flow of wealth, if we hoard our life energy, we strangle the prosperity we are trying to protect.
Coagulated energy. That is such a vivid, almost unsettling image. It makes me rethink the whole psychological mechanism behind a savings account driven purely by panic. It is not that you shouldn't save money or prepare for the future. Chopra isn't advocating for financial recklessness at all. It is about the intention behind the saving.
Yes, intention is everything.
If the intention is fear, hoarding, and poverty consciousness, this belief that there will never be enough of a work, you are blocking the flow. You are creating coagulation.
The intention must always be to create happiness for the giver and the receiver. When the intention is flow, the saving becomes a reservoir meant to generate future energy, not a dam built out of terror.
So the practical translation of this, the everyday magic that anyone listening can apply immediately, is incredibly counterintuitive but perfectly logical within this framework. To get what you want, you have to help others get what they want. If you want joy, give joy. If you want love, learn to give love. If you want material affluence, help others become affluent.
It bypasses the ego completely. The ego demands things from the universe. Give me money, give me love. But the ego is acting like a separate entity fighting the current. When you give what you seek, you aren't demanding. You are initiating the flow of the very thing you desire. You become a conduit.
And there's a very specific, actionable application he offers here called the silent gift. He says you should make a rule for yourself. Never visit anyone without bringing a gift.
Though he is careful to clarify that this doesn't have to be monetary. If you literally bought a physical present every time you interacted with someone, you'd go bankrupt.
Right, totally. A gift can be a physical item like a flower or a book, but it can also be a genuine compliment. But a practice I find the most compelling is the silent blessing. When you meet someone, you can simply send them a silent wish for happiness, joy, and laughter. You don't say a single word out loud.
You might wonder, well, how does a silent thought affect the physical world? But when you hold a genuine intention of joy for someone, it changes your subtle body language. It changes your micro-expressions. It changes the tone of your voice. You prime your own brain and nervous system for a positive interaction. And thanks to mirror neurons, the other person unconsciously picks up on that frequency.
That makes so much sense.
That silent offering of positive energy initiates the law of giving and receiving immediately. It creates a flow of goodwill before a word is even spoken.
I really want you, the listener, to try that tomorrow. Just walk into your office or the grocery store or onto a crowded subway car and just silently bless the people you pass. I wish you joy. I wish you laughter. Notice how it physically changes the tension in your own shoulders. Notice how it changes the way you feel in that space, which actually bridges us perfectly to the next logical step. We have got the energy flowing through giving, but now we have to examine the specific actions we take within that flow and the forces those actions generate. This is law number 3, the law of karma, or cause and effect.
Karma is a heavy word. In popular culture, it carries an immense amount of punitive baggage. People view karma as a supernatural ledger of your sins. A cosmic judge waiting to strike you down with a lightning bolt when you cross the street because you stole a candy bar when you were 10.
But Chopra strips away all of that moralistic punishment. He defines karma simply as choice-making. It is the raw mechanics of cause and effect. Every single action generates a force of energy that returns to us in kind. It is like sowing seeds. If you plant apple seeds, you don't get mangoes, you get apples. If you plant seeds of hostility, you get a harvest of hostility.
And this brings up a crucial point of friction. If karma is just the mechanical result of our choices, why do our lives so often feel like a mess? We aren't actively, consciously choosing to be miserable. No one wakes up and says, I think I'll make a series of choices today that will ruin my career and alienate my friends.
I think this is where the book hits hardest.
Yeah.
We aren't choosing it consciously. We are reacting unconsciously. Chopra points out that most of us are prisoners of conditioned reflexes. We are essentially living like Pavlov's dogs.
Ugh. The famous experiment where the dog salivates when it hears a bell because it has been conditioned to associate the sound with food, even when no food is present.
Exactly. We react predictably to external stimuli without a single moment of conscious thought. Someone insults you, and your conditioned reflex is to feel offended and attack back. Your heart rate spikes, cortisol floods your system, and you snap. Someone flatters you, and your reflex is to feel temporarily happy and compliant. You aren't making a choice. Your biological and psychological programming is just running an automated script. We are just biological algorithms reacting to inputs.
That is the human default state. And the goal of the law of karma is to break that automated loop. It requires stepping back into the space of pure awareness, which we cultivated in the first law, and becoming a conscious witness to our choices in the present moment. Instead of just reacting to the insult or the flattery, you insert a pause.
The gap.
Yes. The psychologist Viktor Frankl famously said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Karma is about finding that gap and realizing, I have an infinity of choices right now.
But practically speaking, even if we find that gap, analyzing every single choice with our rational mind sounds paralyzing. Like, if I say A, then B might happen, but what about the downstream effects on C, D, and E? You could get locked in analysis paralysis over what to eat for breakfast.
Yeah.
This is where I think Chopra introduces one of the most brilliant, visceral tools for modern decision-making. He calls it the bodily compass.
He shifts the burden of decision-making away from the analytical brain and down into the heart.
Yes. When you are facing a choice, instead of firing up Excel and making a massive pro-con spreadsheet, you ask your heart two very specific questions. What are the consequences of this choice? And will this choice bring happiness to me and to those around me? And this is the key. You don't wait for a verbal, logical argument in your head. You literally listen to your physical body.
You wait for a physiological sensation.
I was reading up on the science behind this, and it maps perfectly onto the concept of somatic markers and the vagus nerve. Our gut and our heart have complex neural networks that process information holistically, often much faster than our prefrontal cortex. If the choice is right, you will feel a sensation of comfort, usually localized in the heart area or the solar plexus. If the choice is wrong, you will feel a sensation of discomfort, a tightness, a heaviness in your chest.
The rational mind is an incredible tool for execution, but it's terrible at holistic prediction. It is prone to overthinking, rationalizing bad behavior, and being heavily manipulated by the ego. The heart, or the somatic nervous system in this context, processes the total energetic reality of a situation intuitively long before the brain has finished doing the math. It senses the truth.
So the bodily compass helps us navigate future choices. But I know exactly what you're thinking right now because it's what I thought. What about all the terrible unconscious choices I made in my 20s? What about the automated scripts I ran for years that caused damage? What about my past karma? Are we doomed to just suffer the consequences of all our unconscious reactions? Is there a way out?
Fortunately, the system isn't just about punishment. Chopra outlines 3 specific, actionable ways to handle past karmic debts. The first way is the default for most of humanity, and unfortunately, it is the most painful. You pay it.
You just take the hit.
Yes, you make a bad choice, the consequence returns to you, and you endure the hardship. However, the text points out an important comfort even in this. The universe is a perfectly balanced accounting system. Once the karmic debt is paid through that suffering, it is cleared. You don't owe interest on it forever.
But obviously, we want to avoid suffering if we can. The second way is much more empowering. Transmute it. You take the negative karmic return, the painful consequence, and you transform it into a more desirable experience. You do this by asking a very specific question when adversity hits. What can I learn from this experience? Why is this happening to me? And what is the universe trying to teach me?
In psychological terms, this is post-traumatic growth. You extract the wisdom from the pain, which neutralizes the negative energy.
The example he gives is so perfectly relatable. Say you break your leg playing sports. Your first automated reaction is anger and victimhood. Why me? This ruins my whole month. But if you choose to transmute the karma, you stop and ask for the message. Maybe the message is that you have been moving frantically through your life. You are deeply stressed. You've been ignoring your family, and the universe had to physically force you to slow down and reevaluate your priorities. Suddenly, the broken leg isn't a cosmic punishment. It is a forced retreat that saves you from a heart attack or a divorce 5 years down the line. You've taken the karmic energy and upgraded it into wisdom.
And then there is the third way to handle past karma. Transcend it.
This one feels the most mystical. He compares it to washing dirty laundry.
He does. By continually entering the gap, that space of pure silence and potentiality we discussed in the first law, achieved through deep meditation, you continually wash away the seeds of past karma before they even have a chance to sprout. It is like taking a dirty piece of clothing and repeatedly washing it in a pure river. The sheer force and purity of the unmanifest field dissolve the lingering energetic debts.
So if we look at the progression so far, we've found our internal stillness, we've got our energy flowing outward through giving, we're making conscious choices using our somatic bodily compass, and we are cleaning up our past mistakes. We are becoming highly efficient beings. Now, we move to a concept that completely breaks the modern work ethic. The path of non-resistance, formerly known as Law number 4, the law of least effort.
Right, because if karma is about the mechanics of making a conscious choice, the law of least effort teaches us how to execute those choices without burning ourselves out.
Because even if you make the absolute right choice, you can still exhaust yourself trying to force it to happen on your rigid timeline.
Exactly. The core concept here is derived from the Vedic principle of economy of effort. It states that nature functions with effortless ease and zero friction.
This brings us all the way back to the oak tree metaphor from the beginning of our deep dive. Grass doesn't try to grow, it just grows. Fish don't try to swim, they just swim. The earth doesn't struggle to spin on its axis, it is their intrinsic nature.
Which forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question about human behavior. Why are human beings the only species on the planet that believes suffering, anxiety, and intense, friction-filled effort are prerequisites for accomplishing our nature?
It's the ego. The ego loves the struggle because the struggle makes it feel important.
It is entirely the ego. The text explains that when our actions are motivated by love, which is a unifying force, our energy actually multiplies and accumulates. It's synergistic. But when our actions are motivated by the ego and we are seeking power over others or constantly trying to control circumstances to feel safe and secure, our energy is violently wasted.
I picture it like driving a sports car with the parking brake fully engaged.
Right.
You are slamming on the gas pedal, the engine is roaring, you're burning through fuel, there's smoke everywhere, and you are barely moving forward. You're creating massive friction.
Yeah.
So how do we release the parking brake? How do we actually practice the law of least effort in a world that demands constant hustle?
Chopra gives us 3 incredibly challenging steps.
Step 1, acceptance.
I want to be really careful here because when high achievers hear the word acceptance, they immediately equate it with resignation or giving up. They think, if I accept that my business is failing, then I'm just a failure. That is a very common misinterpretation. Acceptance does not mean apathy. Acceptance means making a commitment to accept people, situations, and circumstances exactly as they are in this precise present moment. It is the profound, logical realization that this moment right now is exactly as it should be, because the entire history of the universe has culminated to create it.
Right. If you are stuck in terrible traffic, screaming at the steering wheel doesn't change the traffic. Fighting the present moment means you are essentially fighting the entire universe. And you will lose every single time.
You will lose, and you will exhaust all your mental and physical energy in the process. You accept things as they are, not as you wish they were. Only from a baseline of reality can you make a sound decision.
Which perfectly sets up step 2, responsibility. Once you accept the terrifying reality of the moment, what do you do with it?
Responsibility in this framework has a very specific definition. It means not blaming anyone or anything for your situation. And critically, that includes not blaming yourself. Blame is an ego-driven energy drain. Responsibility means recognizing that every problem is actually an opportunity in disguise.
It is the ability to have a creative response to the situation as it is. Like the traffic is terrible. I accept it. I'm not blaming the city planners. My responsibility is to use this time. I will listen to an audiobook. I will practice my breathing. You pivot the energy. And then we hit step 3, which I think is the most difficult for anyone active on social media. Defenselessness.
Oh, this is perhaps the most crucial practice for preserving your life energy.
Chopra quotes Don Juan from Carlos Castaneda's books. Don Juan says that most of our energy is wasted defending our point of view. Think about that deeply for a second. Think about every argument you've ever had in the comment section of a YouTube video. Think about sitting at a Thanksgiving dinner table, aggressively trying to convince your uncle that his political views are fundamentally flawed.
You feel physically and emotionally drained afterward, don't you?
Completely hollowed out. And did you change his mind? No.
Yeah.
Did you change the mind of the stranger on the internet? No. You just threw your energy into a black hole. Defenselessness means relinquishing the desperate need to convince or persuade others of your point of view. You just drop the rope. You remain open to all points of view without rigidly attaching yourself to any of them.
When you drop the defense, when you stop trying to force others to validate your reality, you instantly recover all that wasted energy. The parking brake is released. You can then channel that massive reservoir of recovered energy toward creating what you actually want.
So if we've dropped our defenses, stopped blaming others, and stopped wasting energy fighting the reality of the universe, we suddenly have this massive reservoir of freed up energy. How do we actually aim it? How do we translate that static potential into a new reality? This brings us to the mechanics of creation, or law number 5. The law of intention and desire.
We direct this energy by understanding that the universe, at its fundamental quantum level, is not made of solid matter. It is composed entirely of 2 things: energy and information. And the golden rule of this law is beautifully succinct. Attention energizes, and intention transforms.
Let's break those 2 halves down. Attention energizes. Whatever you put your mental focus on grows stronger in your life. It is the observer effect in quantum physics, scaled up to human psychology. If you obsessively focus on your problems, you give them energy, you expand them. If you focus on your possibilities, you energize them. But attention isn't enough on its own. Intention is the steering wheel. Intention is what actually transforms that raw energy and information into a new physical reality.
But the crucial mechanism here is where and how you plant that intention. You can't just shout your desires at the universe while your mind is in a state of chaos.
I was thinking about this, like trying to run a highly delicate, complex software program on a computer that is riddled with malware, pop-up ads, and 100 open browser tabs. The processor is maxed out. If you try to run the new program, the system crashes. Chopra uses a more natural analogy. Imagine your mind is a turbulent ocean. The waves are 50 feet high, which represents your daily anxiety, your frantic to-do lists, your internal arguments. If you take the Empire State Building and throw it into that raging ocean, it wouldn't even be noticed. It would just be swallowed by the chaos.
Your intention is completely lost in the noise of your own mind.
But if you use the practices we discussed in Law 1, the silence, the meditation, the non-judgment, and you calm your mind until it is like a perfectly tranquil, glass-like pond, then you can take a tiny pebble, a simple, quiet intention, and drop it into the water. And because the water is still, that tiny pebble creates ripples that expand across the entire surface of the pond.
That is the mechanical power of planting an intention in the field of pure potentiality. When the mind is still, the intention effortlessly reverberates through the entire universal field.
So to operationalize this, he gives us a 5-step process for manifesting desire. And we really need to look at the psychological friction in these steps. First, you slip into the gap, you meditate, you get to that quiet pond state.
Second, once you are in that silent, highly receptive space, you release your intentions and desires. You drop the pebble.
Third, you remain rooted in the self. This means you don't jump up from your meditation cushion and immediately look at yourself through the eyes of the world, wondering if you look successful yet. You maintain that self-referral state. You don't let external opinions poison the intention.
Fourth, and this is the absolute crux of the issue that bridges into our next major concept, you relinquish attachment to the outcome.
Okay, I have to challenge this because this is where my analytical mind hits a brick wall, and I know you listening probably feel it too. How do you deeply, passionately desire something like a promotion, or a healthy relationship, or a successful business launch, and simultaneously not care if you get it? If I am totally detached from the result, why would I work hard? Won't I just sit on the couch and wait for the universe to deliver it?
That is the ultimate paradox of this philosophy, but it resolves beautifully when we understand the nuance. You are not detaching from your intention. You still want the promotion. You are holding the intention firmly. What you are detaching from is your rigid, suffocating attachment to the specific result and the specific timeline. You are letting go of the desperate, fearful need for it to happen exactly the way your ego pictured it.
Because attachment is rooted in fear. It is what Chopra calls poverty consciousness. It is the deep-seated belief that if I don't get a specific promotion on Tuesday, my life is ruined and I will not be okay.
Exactly. And the trap here is the search for absolute security. We are conditioned to believe that if we just get the right job, the right house, the right partner, the right bank balance, we will finally be secure. But the book explains that the search for security is an illusion. It is an attachment to the known. And what is the known? The known is just our past conditioning.
The known is the prison of past karma. If you only accept what you already know, you just keep recreating your past.
Precisely. If you cling to the known, you guarantee stagnation and entropy. True wealth consciousness actually embraces uncertainty. And this brings us to law number 6, the law of detachment. Uncertainty is the fertile soil of pure creativity and freedom.
This reframes the entire concept of the unknown. Usually the unknown is terrifying. It's the dark room we don't want to walk into. But Chopra is saying, when you step into the unknown, instead of being terrified, you should realize, oh, this is the field of all possibilities. Literally anything could happen here.
This doesn't mean you wander aimlessly through life. You still have an intention. You know exactly what direction you want to walk.
But you are completely flexible about the path you take to get there. It is like the agile mindset in software development. You have goal for the product, but if user feedback takes you in a different direction, you don't stubbornly stick to the original code. You adapt.
Yes. If you are rigidly attached to the outcome and you encounter an obstacle, you force solutions. You try to smash through the wall. This violates the law of least effort, it creates massive friction, and it usually spawns 3 new problems. But if you are detached, you encounter an obstacle and you say, okay, the universe is orchestrating something different. You remain alert to spontaneous opportunities. The obstacle might be pointing you to a much better path, a much bigger opportunity that your ego couldn't possibly have imagined.
By staying unattached, you allow the universe to surprise you. You cure the tunnel vision. Okay, so we've learned how to flow, how to act, how to desire, and how to detach from the result. But this raises the ultimate question. What should we be desiring in the first place? If we have this incredible manifesting engine, what is the right fuel to put in it? This is the final law, law number 7, the law of Dharma, or purpose in life.
The entire philosophical narrative culminates here. The core concept of Dharma is that everyone, every single person listening to this right now, is a localized packet of consciousness with a unique talent.
Localized packet of consciousness is such a wild quantum physics way to describe a human being, but it makes sense. We are a concentrated node of the universe experiencing itself.
And as that unique node, you have a gift. You have a talent that you can express better than anyone else alive.
I think we all secretly hope that's true about ourselves, but society, the education system, the corporate ladder, it all kind of beats that belief out of us. We are told to conform, to be well-rounded, to fix our weaknesses rather than maximize our unique genius.
But the law states that when your unique expression, your specific talent meets the needs of humanity, you generate unlimited wealth and you experience the absolute exaltation of your own spirit. That is your dharma. That is your purpose.
There is a really powerful anecdote from Chopra in the book about how he raised his own children that perfectly illustrates this redefinition of ambition. He didn't pressure them to worry about earning a living. He didn't demand they get the absolute best grades at the expense of their joy. Instead, from a very young age, he urged them to find what their unique talent was and to figure out how they could use it to serve the world. He told them he would support them financially so they never had to worry about survival, which allowed them to focus entirely on purpose.
And the result of that psychological freedom, they became financially independent before they even finished university, because they were driven by passion and service, not the anxiety of survival.
The shift in perspective there is profound. The actionable application for discovering your Dharma has 3 parts. First, discover your true spiritual self, which brings us all the way back to Law 1. You have to get quiet enough to actually hear your own inner voice.
Second, make a list of your unique talents. What are the things you love doing? What are the activities where time just seems to vanish, where you enter a state of complete flow?
And third, and this is a pivot point that unlocks the wealth, shift your internal dialogue. The ego constantly asks, what's in it for me? How can I get more money, more status, more followers? You have to aggressively replace that with the question of the spirit. How can I help? How can I serve humanity with this talent?
When you ask what's in it for me, you are operating from a paradigm of scarcity. You're trying to extract from the world. When you asked, how can I help, you bypass the ego entirely and you tap directly into the abundance of the universe. You become a node of distribution for the universe's energy.
It is incredible how elegantly these concepts stack on top of one another. Which is why I love how Chopra wraps up the text. He uses a biological analogy that serves as a masterclass on how these 7 laws aren't just abstract mystical ideas. They are physical realities operating simultaneously within a single, perfect system right now in the human body.
It grounds everything we've talked about in indisputable biology. Let's walk through it. Every single cell in your body contains DNA. That DNA holds the genetic blueprint for the entire universe of your body. A skin cell has the information to build a heart. That is the physical, material expression of pure potentiality, the first law.
Every part holds the potential for the whole.
Exactly. Now, think about your immune system. When a cell is under attack from a virus or is in distress, the immune cells rush to its aid. They give everything they have to protect it. They don't ask for a reward. They don't hoard their energy. That is the biological expression of the law of giving and receiving, the second law.
They are operating in an incredibly complex flow of dynamic exchange. What about karma and least effort? How does a cell navigate that?
Look at cellular metabolism. A cell takes a sugar molecule and converts it into ATP, into energy. It does this with absolute mathematical precision, creating exactly what is needed to survive with zero friction and zero waste. It is the perfect execution of cause and effect, karma, the third law, combined with absolute economy of effort, least effort, the fourth law. The cell doesn't stress out about digesting sugar. It doesn't try to digest the sugar. It just does it.
And the cell has intention. It isn't just randomly bouncing around.
Yes, every action a cell takes from secreting hormones to dividing is driven by an underlying intelligence, an intention to maintain the harmony and life of the greater body. That is the law of intention and desire, the fifth law. Yet the cell is entirely detached from the result. It doesn't cling to its own individual lifespan. When it's time for a cell to die so a new healthy one can be born, it gracefully undergoes apoptosis. It lets go without a fight. That is the law of detachment, the sixth law.
And finally, Dharma.
Dharma, the seventh law, is perfectly mirrored in cellular differentiation. A cell starts as a stem cell, pure potential, but then it takes on a specific job. It becomes a heart cell or a stomach cell or a neuron in the brain. It uses its unique structure to serve the greater good of the entire human body. A heart cell doesn't get jealous of a brain cell. It doesn't wish it were a liver cell. It finds its ultimate fulfillment and its ultimate utility in simply being the absolute best heart cell it can be.
Wow. When you lay it out biologically like that, you see the natural order. It's an unstoppable, elegant cascade. You touch pure potentiality, which naturally triggers the desire to give, which inherently creates positive karma, which makes your actions entirely effortless, which clears the runway for your intentions to manifest, while you remain blissfully detached from the turbulence of the outcome, all in service of your unique dharma. It is a closed, perfect loop of human actualization.
It proves that these spiritual laws are literally written into our biology.
So what does this all mean for you as we wrap up this deep dive? Why does this book, written decades ago, matter so deeply today? I truly believe it is the ultimate antidote to the epidemic of burnout we are seeing across the globe. If you are exhausted by the traditional hustle culture, if you feel like Sisyphus endlessly pushing a heavy boulder up a steep hill only to watch it roll back down, Chopra is offering you permission to just drop the boulder. He is offering a path to actualizing your greatest potential that is harmonious, peace-driven, and intrinsically aligned with how the physical universe actually works.
It is a profound reminder that true success isn't something you force into existence through violence and exhaustion. It is something you allow to unfold by removing the friction.
We hope this deep dive has given you some profound, practical tools to remove that friction in your own life. And as we leave you today, we want to offer a final, slightly mind-expanding thought that bridges the gap between this ancient Vedic philosophy and the very cutting edge of modern science.
It is fascinating to look at where theoretical physics is heading right now. Quantum field theory postulates that at the fundamental level of reality, there are no solid particles. There are only invisible underlying fields that ripple and interact to create the illusion of solid matter. This means that the field of pure potentiality that ancient mystics wrote about thousands of years ago, the unmanifest turning into the manifest, isn't just a poetic metaphor. It is rapidly becoming the accepted, mathematically proven model of quantum physics.
Science is finally catching up to the spirit. The universe really is just a field of pure potential waiting for your intention. How would your day look tomorrow if you stopped fighting the current of that field? What if you let the river of the universe carry you instead of trying to furiously swim upstream? Think about that as you move through your wind. Make sure to subscribe to the Book Nook so you never miss a deep dive with us. And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us which book you'd like us to explore next. We read every single one.